it can get cold. Staring out the window with a drop of hope. Riding all the way home. Riding all the way home. I can feel the wind blow. It can get cold. Staring out the window with a drop of hope. Riding all the way home. Riding all the way home.
Welcome to EHAUS. I am Felicia Smith, and this is my best friend, Pam Robinson. Ooh.
Hello, everybody.
The reason why we are converging is because we both have the same aspiration, and that is to inspire and encourage other people, men and women. But
Amen.
I'm just so excited that you're here. I'm just so excited here. We've known each other for what?
Whew.
30, 35? I won't say 40. That's just too old. Okay, let's just keep it at 35. Okay.
Long time.
We've known each other for a long time.
Yes.
College roommates, friends. I can call you, you call me. I vent to you, you vent to me, and we never judge one another. And that's what I love about you.
Amen.
But I'm so excited because you wrote a book. And I'm so excited to share this book. I read this book and it resonated with me. A lot of things that I read in this book, I could remember when I was in college and you were going through situations in your life. And I sat back on the side. I felt like what I was reading, I was like, oh my God, I sat back on the sideline and just watched you maneuver through life, navigate through life. And I did nothing to help you. And at the time in my life, I guess that's where I am now. I try to help people and inspire people, as you know. Well,
You do.
we both do.
You absolutely
But
do.
we're gonna talk a little bit about your story. I'm so glad that you're here again today.
Thanks for having
So
me.
tell me, what really inspired you to write your story?
I didn't want to write my story.
I bet.
I didn't. It's painful to talk about. It's painful to hash up memories with my parents and talk about, things that happened that people really don't like to talk about. But God told me I had to tell my story. So that's why we have it.
That's right. And it is about sharing your story because you're not just healing yourself, you're healing others. And I find out when you heal others, it is so beneficial
Well,
to you.
it was bigger than
It's
me.
not right.
Yeah.
It was bigger than you. And I love the cover.
Thank you.
Love the cover. And tell me a little bit about the butterfly.
The butterfly is significant in 2012 when I was going through my healing process, when I found out about some trauma that had caused me to act out all the years from the time you knew me forward. A friend of mine said I was like a butterfly coming out.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And ever since then, it seemed like everything pointed to the butterfly, the rebirth of the butterfly.
Wow.
And so it had to be part of the story.
I love that analogy because you talked about that in the first part of the book about the caterpillar and the butterfly. That was so interesting. And I was like, it was captivating. Like, that's really a great metaphor, basically. Well, where did you get the title from?
I had prayed and prayed and prayed, and my shower time is when God really ministers to me.
Mine too.
Really?
Yes.
So
yes, it really does.
I had prayed and prayed about it, and I had several things in my mind. Of course, the flesh will try to give you things too, but I really wanted, because God told me to write this, I really wanted it to be from God. And he just one morning in the shower, he gave it to me.
Didn't he give you stuff in the shower?
He
you can't get out and you want to write it down and you're in the shower and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But he does. He really
does.
gives you.
He does. That's my time.
Yep. He speaks to you. He speaks to you. And you also mentioned in your book that you were a Christian. And I know that the word Christian, it basically it's been stigmatized, the word Christian. Were you concerned about that? Saying that you were a Christian?
I was, in just that I really wanted the book to reach everybody, saved and unsaved. But God made it very, very clear that he wanted this for his children.
Yes. And you were obedient.
And I was obedient.
And sometimes it's hard for us to be obedient, but you were obedient.
Yeah.
I also love in the book where you said, and when I read it first, I wrote it down wrong. I thought it said falling, and getting back up, but you actually said falling, failing and getting back up. That resonated with me. I was like, okay, yeah, falling, failing. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Kind of reminds me of when you were your childhood from
Mm.
the beginning. From the beginning, you talked about what really was captivating to me was the invisible electric fence. We're going to talk about your childhood because we got to
Okay,
back up a little bit
sure.
and talk about that. So tell me about the invisible electric fence. What that experience, your childhood experience.
It was tough. My dad had three girls. We had a brother who came along 10 years later,
Mm-hmm.
but my dad was a really protective dad, and he didn't want his girls to get pregnant before finishing school. It was happening a whole lot in our
Right,
community.
right.
So that was my dad's big fear. And he was so strict that we couldn't even cross the street. Our grandmother lived across the street. We couldn't even go to her house without getting
Wow,
permission.
wow.
We couldn't go into the neighbor's yard without getting permission. And as we got older, we began to realize that that was really abnormal.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
thinking back when I'm writing about my experience as a childhood, invisible fence came to mind because we
yeah.
weren't really fenced in, but we were fenced in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I remember you telling me about that. I remember you telling me that your curfew was at 8 p.m. and I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
really?
he was very strict.
Yeah, you said, but we know that that was his way of showing love
It
and
was.
protection. And I think about as a child, the enemy sets us up to fall. So when I thought about when in your story you fell, you thought you failed, but yet you got back up. And that's what I love about your story. So when I think about your childhood, the enemy sets us up to fall. I'm thinking about my grandson. Yes, I have a little grandson. Okay. So he
He's
was over one
beautiful.
day. He was over, thank you. He was over one day and he just started really learning how to walk. And
Hmm.
he's getting pretty comfortable with it. So he was walking and I was upstairs and I heard my husband say, "Oh, he's walking." And then all of a sudden my husband said, "Walk, walk, walk." Well, he fell down, and when he fell down, he knew what was comfortable, so he started crawling again because he was comfortable with crawling. So,
Hmm.
and I heard my husband say, "Walk, walk, walk," and he got back up and started walking. And I said, my husband said, "Oh, that's good." So I assumed, yeah, he got back up and he
Right,
started walking.
right.
And I was thinking, I was like, "Oh my God," he heard a voice of encouragement,
Mm,
and sometimes we
mm,
don't always hear that from in our family members or our
mm,
parents. We know that they love him, but just hearing that voice of her, it just
mm.
pushed him back up. And he got up
Yes.
and he just started walking. So I thought about that when I was when you were telling me about the your childhood and your
Mm-hmm,
childhood experience.
mm-hmm.
And also, um I want to talk a little bit about, I know it's about losing Gary Jr. When you lost Gary Jr. and you didn't cry.
Mm.
That I remember you telling me that. So tell me about why you think that you didn't cry. Did you? Of course, you didn't know it. You talked about it a little bit. So tell me a little bit about that experience. I know you were devastated, but how did you feel?
Kind
But
of numb. I was
no,
pretty numb. I'm 10 years older than he was at the time.
okay.
Um, and I just remember being so shocked by it that everybody was crying. My parents are screaming. I mean, the pain was there, but I couldn't cry. I wanted to. And then I think it's at that point that I realized that there was something not right with me, that I couldn't cry
Mm,
in that moment.
mm, wow. So that's when you started kind of saying something's a little bit different. Something a little bit different. And then fast forward, we want to talk a little bit about. I know that was devastating to write about and think about. I appreciate you, us even talking about that because I know that was really hard for you. I want to talk a little about when we were in college. Shortly after college, you got married,
Hmm.
had a beautiful baby girl, Brielle. She is beautiful. She's
Thank
beautiful,
you.
and but that marriage didn't go like you thought it was. It was gonna go.
Hmm.
And then I think you just got up and just left. You didn't. You just got up and just left.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about. Oh, and I want know what I really wanted to touch on was after you you left, you were always successful in your career, thriving, very successful, no matter what. But at one point in your life, I read in the book, and you lost everything and you filed bankruptcy, and that's something that I didn't know about. I know that was hard to talk about, you know. So tell us a little bit how you got through that process.
Ooh, that's a long story, so I'll
Well,
try to
just
give
tell
you
it,
the
yeah,
short
maybe just give us a
version.
little bit of it. Yeah.
Um, Devastated, of course. I had achieved a lot of goals at that point. I had bought 5 investment properties, so I'd started that
Wow.
investment career. I had opened a boutique with a partner from corporate America, and things were just going really, really well.
Hmm.
So I couldn't, there's no way you can foresee that happening.
Right, right,
So
right, right.
when the second marriage fell apart,
Oh yeah.
I
Mhm.
lost
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
Um, and it was devastating. I lost my properties, had to actually foreclose on those properties that I'd worked so hard to get and dreamed
Mhm.
about. I lost the boutique. She had to
Wow.
buy me out.
Wow.
I thought I was going to be able to afford bankruptcy, but wasn't. Had to borrow money from a cousin just to even be able to file bankruptcy. So I
Wow.
was up here, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had to move into an apartment. It was all
That had to be
embarrassing and
hard. I
shameful.
bet it was.
But through that, God kept sending me comfort. I was embarrassed and humiliated about the bankruptcy because my father always instilled in us that you pay your bills, you pay your debt. So that was just, devastating to me that I wasn't going to be able to pay people I owed.
Mhm.
And my broker in charge at that time told me that she had to file bankruptcy.
Oh wow.
The peace that
She
gave
told
me,
you her
she
story,
told me, she
basically. You
did.
know.
She gave me her testimony, and that gave me peace. And then in the midst of the fall, it was very, very embarrassing. But one of the church members, I acknowledge her in my book, Nawatha
Mhm.
Carter, I was in a place of shame, but she wanted to have a Bible study with me.
Oh really?
Every week,
I
she
saw about
met
the
me at
McDonald's.
McDonald's
Yeah.
to have
Mhm.
a Bible
Mhm.
study. And
Mhm.
looking back now, I truly believe that's what sustained me through that period so that I could get back up.
And sometimes we need that help. We need that one
Yes.
person to just reach out to us and just say, just be there, just to listen
Hmm.
and maybe guide us through certain situations. Just be there and see. So that was a part of you. You when you filed bankruptcy, you probably felt like I said, you felt like you failed.
Yeah, I
So
did.
you felt like you failed, but you got back up again.
Hmm.
Got back up again.
I did.
Then you met your wonderful husband that you have now, Tony,
Yes.
and you guys were doing good. You were doing great, but still there was something gnawing at you. So tell me a little bit about how you just I read where you just things were going good, but you just felt like a little off kilter, like it just doesn't feel right. You still felt, I guess you felt maybe the insecurities. You felt a little insecurity from probably the invisible electric fence. I don't
I
know,
never
but
connected that.
yeah, but I
That's
mean
so
that's what.
powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's
powerful connection,
yeah.
but I never
So
connected that.
tell me a little bit about that. How you felt? Because Tony was a man, and I know we talked about it. So you knew that Tony loved you. He treated you
Hmm.
so. I mean, you can tell when a man loves you
Oh yeah.
and how he treats you,
Oh yeah.
and you saw that in him.
Yeah.
But yet you were still not happy or right? Am I
Secretly,
saying,
secretly, I
there was
wasn't.
something wrong?
Yeah. Um, Tony was advancing in his career and was starting to really be in leadership positions and teaching real estate. So that put us in the public eye a lot more.
Mm.
And I was always accusing him of other women or looking at other women. I was always
Mm.
so insecure. And he would tell me I was, but I didn't believe I was. And to my mind, it was him. He was the problem.
Right, right.
But every time we were in public, we would end up in an argument. I'd pack up and leave. So we would go back and forth. That was my
Wow,
way of
wow.
coping, was just running.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
he just would not let me go. This man really loved me.
Yeah, and you did right, right. You did exactly.
Because I might have let me go. And if it was
Yeah,
tables were turned, I
exactly,
don't know that I would have
exactly.
stayed for all of that.
Right,
But
right.
he stuck and stayed. But he did tell me repeatedly that I was insecure.
And so I know that's hard to hear.
Yeah.
when you're like, I'm not insecure. No, you're insecure. Then
Right.
you don't want it. There's something that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But then I think something happened, and then you started to seek help. I think you started to seek help, right? After that, you start. I think was it counseling or something? Did you start?
After that, Tony and I were both spiritually wanting a closer walk with God. And I attended this engagement called an encounter that our
Mm-hmm.
church puts on. And it's
Mm-hmm.
where I didn't know what it was, but people said everybody needs to go through it. And
Right,
that people were in
right,
there crying and throwing up and
right,
all
right.
kinds of
And
things.
that
But
sounds
that
scary.
it was scary, but I knew I wanted more of God. So I was ready for it. And so was Tony. We went at different
Mhm.
times, but we
Mhm.
both went through the
Mhm.
encounter.
Mhm. Mhm. After the encounter, I remember. So we're thinking. So and I'm thinking as I'm reading the book, I'm like, okay. So this fence is still here. I'm feeling like she's insecure, maybe, and I resonated with that because I have insecurities too. We all have insecurities. I'm thinking, but all of a sudden, it was a big reveal. Something. It was something else lurking. It was not so much about that invisible fence, was it? That's when I gasped, like, oh my God. And honestly, and I know you told me, because we talked before, you were like, Felicia, I'm writing a book. And I was like, oh, that's great, you're writing a book. I'm surprised. But when I read it, it literally brought tears to my eyes to
Mm.
know what you went through. So
Mm.
tell me a little bit about the reveal of what.
So, um, go to the encounter. It was powerful. I found out that I had some unforgiveness for my dad. And so I was able to release that. It was a really, really powerful experience and just really, really got me in a space of really trusting God, praying more, asking God
Mm,
to help me. And one day, Tony and I were having an argument because I accused him of something, like I always did.
yeah, yeah.
And he left, and I remember crying, which was very, very rare for me. But this time I was actually crying. Going through that encounter just released something for me, obviously.
Wow.
And so I went in the mirror. I was looking in the mirror, and why I'm in the mirror, I don't know.
That's
But
all
I'm
right.
in the
Yeah.
mirror crying. That was God's intention, because I finally said, why am I, God, why am I so
Mm,
insecure?
mm.
And as I'm looking at you, as clear as day, God showed me a pair of red shorts in the mirror.
Oh my gosh. Do you know how hard that is to ask God a question? Why am I insecure?
Hmm. To acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was me
Yeah. To
acknowledging
acknowledge
it.
it.
Whether I
Yep.
wanted
And
to
then
or
ask it.
not,
Yeah.
something in me
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah. And then he showed you the red shorts, and that's when you knew something. Then all of just unearthing the memories and the feelings and all came up, and that's when you realized that.
The red shorts exemplified 16 years old when I was babysitting, and the father of the children raped me. He
Mm.
pinned me down on the sofa. He liked to joke and tease
And you
and
don't have
play
to go
with
into
me.
graphic details because it's pretty graphic. So we don't want to. I didn't want to get you to have to get
Okay.
into details
Okay.
about it, but it's pretty graphic. And I know at that time after that you probably blamed yourself. After that, I remember you said something about blaming yourself because we always find, and that's a part of being insecure. We'll turn it on ourselves.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine how horrible that was. So I know after you realized you were raped, and then a couple of years after that you were molested by your pastor in church. So, but we're not going to get into that. But I know that this caused a lot of trauma for you, and it was like you're carrying wounds around.
Hmm.
And so tell me a little bit about. We know how the trauma affect you emotionally, but when you realized that you were raped, I think after that, after you went through all the visceral feelings and everything, and you said, I just got to get back up, and then you started researching.
Hmm.
You started researching. See, you started researching. You started helping yourself so that you could probably help others. I know you. That's how you are. And so, tell me a little bit about how trauma has impacts the health of a person. Not so much, medically also. How does that trauma? Tell me a little bit about that.
Um, I was curious as to how I was able to bury the trauma for 30 years. I mean, that's pretty astounding when you think about it. My mind, I just couldn't wrap my mind around how that's possible that I act out all this pain and all these behaviors for 30 years and not know.
Hmm.
And God led me to science, which I wasn't fond of in college, as you know.
Right.
Didn't do well in
Me
science.
too. Me too.
But he led me to information about the subconscious mind and how the body to protect us, of course, God to protect us, if you have something traumatic happen that you don't want to deal with, you can bury it
Wow.
in your
Wow.
subconscious.
Wow.
It's not supposed to stay there. It's
Hmm.
supposed to come up when you're able to deal with it so you can heal.
Mm.
Well, mine never came up. And
Wow.
the studies show that that undealt with subconscious trauma can make you physically sick.
Wow.
There was a study called Adverse Childhood Experience that correlates
Mm.
trauma to all kinds of sickness.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, to God, I felt like God really wanted people to understand that they have to deal with those very things so that they can heal.
That's true. That's true. Now the adverse child experience, I took that. You had it. You also provided tools in the book, which is what I love about this book because you not only wrote the book for yourself, you wrote it to help others, as I've mentioned, but I took the test, the adverse childhood experience test, and I took it. I scored a 1, and I was like, oh, I'm cool. Okay, cool. Then I started thinking, and I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, no, I remember
Mm,
something else.
wow.
And so I did score 2, but I remembered, and I was so it got me thinking, and I was like, oh, okay. But it just made me think that we don't know why we're acting out. I mean, the little small things
Hmm.
can trigger us, and make us wonder, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I thinking this
Hmm.
way? But a lot of times it's just God gnawing at us, saying, I need you. You need me.
Hmm. Yep.
But of course God doesn't need us, but we need him. But that's what it is. But you provided like I said, the tools. You provided worksheets in here,
Hmm.
ways to reflect, statistics. It's just, this is more than just a book telling a story. This is a book. I think it would be wonderful for a support group. That's what, remember I told you that I said,
Yes.
I
Yes.
called you. I said, Pam, this would be a great book for a support group.
Hmm.
Even a book club, because sometimes we need to get in there, and as young girls we need to kind of share our story,
Hmm.
and not be judgmental of one another, because
Hmm.
everyone is walking around healing, trying or
Every
trying
day.
to heal from something,
Yes.
from something.
Yes.
But anyway, so I am so glad that you shared the story. I didn't want to tell too much of the story because it's so good. It's profound. It's intriguing. But if you feel a little, if you're in your life and you feel a little off kiltered, or you feel like something's going on in your life, and something is gnawing at you, you know, you really need to try to just see what's going on.
Amen.
You know, tell me one thing about. I wanted to ask you though. Do you forgive the men that violated you, the men that raped? Do you forgive those men?
I feel like I have.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have. I've prayed for them
Mm-hmm.
because I now understand that they too probably had trauma in their lives that led them to that behavior. I still feel
That's good.
uncomfortable when I go back home, but I pray that I have truly forgiven them in my heart.
That's good. That is a good way of healing. Forgiving. And I want to
We
ask
have
you.
to.
I ask you one more thing before we go, and then we'll talk about look where you can purchase this book. Um, I too want to. How do you deal with the negative thoughts when you have the thoughts coming back, or how do you deal with the triggers when you feel like something is gonna? Because I mean, we have our moments where we're down and the day is not going very well, and you start thinking, how do you deal with the negative thoughts?
They're constant. They're nonstop. I still have them to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I've grown spiritually, so I know that there are attacks
Oh wow, that's good.
and there are tips to
That's
knock
good.
me
That's
off.
good.
So I speak to them the truth, because most of the time they're lies. And
I
if you
like,
really
yeah,
write it
that's
down
so
and you
true.
really
That's so
meditate and
true.
you think about it,
That's so
it's
true.
a lie.
That's true.
And being surrounded by people who will feed you positive energy is
Kind of
important.
like we do.
Or
I mean,
absolutely
really,
what we
if
do.
something's going on, I'll just call you. If it's something deep going on, honestly, I'll just pick up the phone, and I know you're going to tell me the truth.
We have to have that in
That's
our
the thing
lives.
about it. You'll tell me the truth. You just don't. You're not going to tell me what I want to hear, and that's what I appreciate about. I guess that's why our friendship has lasted,
Yes.
because we will tell each other the truth. You're like, Felicia, now you know that you were wrong,
And you do
and
the
I was
same for
like,
me.
okay. I was like, okay, you're right. I'm okay, but
You
I
do the
just
same
needed you
for
to
me.
tell me, and
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh, and then I get on the phone. Yeah, I was wrong. So we think about that. One other thing, oh gosh, because things are just coming in my head. I'm sorry, but
That's
one
okay.
other thing in the book that I did want to talk about was that when God revealed to you what happened to you, you were angry at God.
Oh, yeah.
Just suppose feeling His love and His joy and peace. Tell me a little bit about that, and then I promise you we're going to be done. But I just promise. I just wanted you to tell a little bit about that.
30 years? You let me walk around with this for 30, bad enough that it happened to me. So it brings up all the emotion of it even happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then to think of your behavior and who you may have hurt in your life over the course of 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I was bad.
You was mad. You was mad. That's right.
I'm like, why God?
Right.
Why God? Why would you allow this?
But at the same time, you felt His peace and love and joy.
Whew. It took a minute.
It took a minute. Yes. It took a minute.
It took a
Got
minute.
you. I got
He
you.
answered me
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
answered me very
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. Sometimes we got it. Sometimes we got, and I think you mentioned it. We have layers and layers. Sometimes we got to fight through
Oh goodness.
just to see what's going on inside of us and talk to God and get in that little room and pray and focus on Him. And I love that about how you did. It was like a breakthrough.
Yeah.
It was a breakthrough. Well, you guys, thank you so much for listening to Pam's story. It is called Born, Buried, but Not Dead. It is available on Amazon.com. And she also, and tell me a little bit about, let's tell us a little bit about, talk a little bit about your
Transforming
ministry.
Wings of Healing.
Okay.
That's part of what God gave me as a result of my testimony. He wanted me to start a nonprofit and promote awareness of adverse childhood experiences and childhood trauma.
Wow.
So we started transformingwingsofhealing.com.
Oh, wow.
And we offer funds, counseling to people who feel like they need counseling. We do events to promote awareness and speaking engagements where needed.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you, love you, love you. And I want to just say that, like I always said, that everyone has an untold, unusual, unthinkable, unbelievable story. And so
Everyone.
now Pam's story that was untold is now told. Please get a copy of it. It will change your life. It will begin you thinking what is wrong, because everybody is walking around here with insecurities, and we think, what's going on? If you read this book, you got to ruminate it. You have to make you think a little bit. Sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to stop and think and stop running.
Amen.
Okay. Love you guys. E.H.A.U.S.
We can get cold, staring out the window with a drop of hope, riding all the way home, riding all the way home. I can feel the wind blow, we can get cold, staring out the window with a drop of hope, riding all the way home, riding all the way home. Said I never changed and I grew. I had never flown and I flew. And I've been smiling on my Instagram inside feeling blue. I heard nothing lasts forever, praying that isn't true. Cause I need something to be worth it.